Hey guys, I am Game Advisor, and today I'm here with Jake, the project lead of Icarus. So I kind of already introduced you, but I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do on the Icarus development team.
Hi, I'm Jake, project lead here on Icarus here at Rocketwerkz. I help manage the strategic direction of Icarus as well as, getting in and coding and doing designing and stuff like that as well. So, yeah, I'm multifaceted, I guess you could say.
Okay, well, awesome. I'm glad we get to do this with you. So I'm just gonna kind of start firing off questions. Feel free to go as in depth with them as you want, or as little in depth as you'd like to.
Cool. One thing before you start, just hearing you do the intro live in person is real surreal. I've watched so many of your videos. I was like, holy crap. Anyway, sorry.
No, you're good. That's awesome to hear. I don't get to hear that very often, so thank you. I appreciate it. I'm excited to do this interview with you. All right. So I'll just start firing off some questions for you. So the first question I have is, and some of these you probably have talked about before, but not everybody reads through all of the patch notes and stuff and all of the stuff you guys put out. So there might be some things that I'm just covering twice. So just so you kind of have a heads up.
Yep,
so
that's fine.
The first question I have is, will there be any tameable pets in the future? I think we saw that on the roadmap. And will these pets be able to, if assuming we can tame them, be able to fight with us, or what'll kind of be their purpose? Are they just cosmetic? And will those be included with the new DLC, or are those something that will be most likely included either beforehand or along the way? Or like, when can we expect to see those, and where would they be at?
All right, that's a very loaded question.
Sorry.
We've got on the roadmap that we want to do an animal and companions update as part of the larger chunks of work we're doing now. So you can be sure to see one of those in future focused on animals and animal companions. We've got some plans for just general tameable pets like knot mounts, as well as providing the creatures with their own levels, skill trees, buffs, and all sorts of equipment. You can rest easy knowing that is coming. It's just not scheduled for the next big update, the one we've just started working on, which is Hypatia.
Okay, awesome. And then the next question, I'll probably come back to that and ask you some questions about that here in a little bit.
That's fine.
I'm going to go through some of these other ones. So another one I've seen a lot of people talking about throughout pretty much the entire course of Icarus is, are there going to be any like mechanical vehicles available, such as maybe like a motorcycle or something? I believe you guys touched on it in a patch quite a while back, but I just wanted to know where your guys' stance is now that we have mounts in the game.
Yeah, so we originally did a lot of testing with vehicles, and we were going for the kind of snow runner or mud runner vibe. Low, slow moving machines that you have to take care of, that are fully focused on transporting of goods kind of thing. And then we also investigated some kind of faster ones as well. And we found quite quickly that the maps we'd created, Olympus and Styx, were not very well suited for these kind of vehicles. They would clip things, they would get stuck, the physics just wasn't good, and it became more of a chore. So we elected to take them out for now. And we decided to focus on mounts because that felt more natural in the current direction of Icarus, as well as we already had some cool logic in place there. So we are definitely expanding the mount system. But at this point, there's no plans to go down the vehicle route unless we decide to do a map with them created in mind. That's not to say we'll never do them, because what we really want is to create a need and a nice gameplay loop design-wise for vehicles to fit into the game, kind of like how mounts have now. It's just there's no natural place for us to put it in without it feeling very forced and not solving a problem that we've already kind of solved with other design mechanisms.
Oh yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything I had for that. I did want to just kind of throw, and this is really just a personal question here. So as far as the mounts go, could we ever imagine maybe a flying tameable mount? Is that something that could be a potential in the future? I'm guessing you probably don't have anything planned for that, but I just figured I would ask because it's something I've always personally wanted.
We probably might not do a flying mount, but we have something else in the works that we're prototyping at the moment that might fulfill that same kind of need, I guess.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, sorry, I can't say too much about that
No,
one.
that's okay. I get it. So let's see. So the next question I had for you is, what kind of new weaponry can we expect to start seeing in the future of Icarus?
Oh, weaponry. All right. So, in the next patch, the next larger patch, we are planning on introducing some new weapons. That should be quite interesting, and they come with their own little mechanic. We do plan on increasing the range of weaponry, both melee and projectile weapons. But we have to just be careful because we don't want to make anything too overpowered. I mean, like, if you have a look at the bows already, like the Larkwell Martinez bow, that thing just destroys. So before, like, we're adding some weapons soon, and then as we've got on the roadmap, we plan on doing a damage rebalance and specifically a critical hit equation rebalance. So first, we're going to add some new things. We're going to let people play with them, and then we're going to do a full pass on all the tools and projectile weapons to bring them more in line, to make them feel better and make it feel like you're not like some godly stormtrooper just going around shooting everything with one shot.
I'm so glad to hear that. That's something I've been wanting for a long time, is to see like the weapons kind of get a full rebalance, because it definitely feels like you said, like some of the weapons feel underpowered or overpowered for where you can get them at, that kind of a situation. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are doing that.
Yeah, personally, if I had like complete free reign with no one telling me what not to do, I would focus a lot on pistols because I absolutely love the pistols in game.
Oh, I think the reload animation for those are so cool.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite things about those, and I love the explosive bullets that you guys added in. That was really cool.
Yeah, I'm glad we added those. They're a bit of fun.
So the next question I have for you is, do you have any plans to add more depth to the random small, like kind of short, I forget what they were called, the simple mission system for the open world mode and stuff like that? Because that's where they're primarily used, I feel like. So just as far as depth goes to those, or variety, because for an example, I think you guys just recently put out about a month ago the update where it was the new mission type where you kind of like find a abandoned building in the wilderness, and then you got to go rebuild it and stuff. But it seems like a lot of those buildings are pretty much, I don't want to say they're always the same, but a lot of them are very similar. So as far as like variety and depth goes, is there any like plans for that in the future?
I can tell you that all those buildings are exactly the same. Yeah, so we do plan on expanding the simple system as we go along. Those missions for the simple boards are designed as like small bite-sized chunks that you can get done in a very small amount of time, usually. And we do use it as a testing bed a little bit to see, to test some new tech and to see if people are engaging with that kind of thing before rolling that technology and the kind of mission experience into larger missions, which we'll be seeing a bit more of soon. We do plan on going through those shortly and giving them more variations, better multiplayer scaling, as well as adjusting the rewards and stuff like that as well. With what's coming in the new update, the simple missions will have their own place, which is like very short-term kind of like small chunks, and then we'll be providing some other alternatives in open world as well as missions as well.
Oh, that's exciting to hear. I would love to see that. That's something I think a lot of people would love, is more open world content, because it seems like that's almost kind of taken off since you guys introduced it.
Yeah, definitely.
So the next question I have for you, and this one's more of a personal question. This is something that I would love to see, so I'm just curious of your thoughts on it. And that's, is there any plans, or you guys ever thought about doing like a horde mode outside of the geyser system that you have right now, where maybe you would drop into a mission and you just drop right at the location that you need to be at, and you have, say, a specific amount of time to build up and defend that location before a hordes would come at you, and you have to kind of survive it, type of a thing. As far as like a mission concept, I don't know if that's something you guys have ever thought about doing, but personally I think that would be just like one of the coolest ideas that I can think of as far as Icarus missions go.
Yeah, we do. We've got a mission in the works for that. It's just we need to get some deployables and some repairable tech out to the players or you guys first before we do something like that. Because
That's fair.
in the ideal situation, there'd be obviously something in world you need to defend, but we want to give you the ability to repair, defenses such as traps and turrets and maybe even an orbital cannon or something like that. So
Oh, that
we
sounds
just
so
want
cool.
to, yeah, we want to make sure we give you a good experience. Like we could put something in now. It's just going to take a little bit of time to get the assets and the mechanics ironed out. Yeah, because we want to provide a different experience than the geysers and the what do you call them?
The
The
simple
scannons.
mission. I was gonna say,
Yeah.
yeah, the simple mission where you defend the little house is kind of like a good concept of kind of what I'm talking about, kind of in a
Mm.
way. But yeah. Anyways, thank you. I'm glad you answered that one. That was something I was really curious about personally, and I'm glad to hear you guys are looking into that. So, next I had, are there any currently new planned game modes that are planned to come out? Such as, I don't know what they would really look like. I know we've got open world and we've got the mission system right now, and we've also got the outposts. But at the moment, personally, the outposts feel a little bit, I don't know if I want to say neglected, but they feel like they almost don't have a good place, whereas the open world is kind of taken over what they were previously. So as
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, so we've separated the game out to the three game modes at the moment: the missions, the open world, and the outposts. We I have plans for a new mode, but I don't think we're going to go down that route just yet. At least not in the next 6 months. And we're going to still focus on the open world and the missions. Um, we have been talking about turning outpost mode into maybe a more creative friendly zone, making it a bit more for like people creating large builds and providing resources and stuff for them there. But yeah, no new game modes currently planned.
okay, oh, that sounds good. I was personally, you just mentioned that, and I was just thinking like, if Outpost turned into almost this system where it's like you just have, you maybe you don't get XP for it, but you can craft as much as you want there and do your own thing. And if you want to build a giant base that just looks really cool or whatever you want to do, you could do that. It was just something I was thinking about as you were talking about that. So I don't know if that's something you guys would ever thought about.
Yeah, it definitely leans itself into that now that open world has kind of taken over the outpost's place. It's in a better position now. There is a bunch of like extra server options and stuff that we do want to like place on both outposts and
Okay.
general missions and stuff in general.
Alright, and then the next question I had for you was, can we ever expect to see the game come to console at this point in time? I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's not on consoles yet. And as far as going forward, is that something you guys have been thinking about, or is that in the works at all?
Never say never, but currently the dev team is focused on our upcoming patches and DLC.
Okay. How often will we be able to see patches such as Galileo coming out? Because I believe originally you guys said the game plan was like every 2 to 3 months. So I'm just curious if that's still what you're aiming for, is like every 2 to 3 months to see a more large patch that's covering some new content and play styles or whatever else that might be coming out with those.
Yeah, so we've scoped we've scoped about 6 or 7 of these like larger patches with big chunks of work in, and they are planned to be about 2 to 3 months each. But if they are finished sooner, they'll be pushed out sooner. If they're finished later, they'll be pushed out later. We're not giving ourselves like a very strict timeline on it because we're more focused on making sure the content is good and we are happy to push it out rather than getting into some situations that some companies do where you have to push things out early or make things drag on in terms of timing.
I love to hear that. I hate when, you're playing a game and something gets pushed out unfinished and it just ruins the experience and stuff. So I'm glad to hear you guys say that. As speaking of Galileo, one of the things I personally noticed with it was it's not retro. It doesn't retroactively like detect, like say like for an example, personally, I've played the game, we'll just say a fair bit. And I've gotten tons and tons of kills on different creatures, but when I go to my Bestiary, it didn't update for that character. So I don't know if that was just not something you guys were able to do via code and stuff, or if that was something you thought about. Because going through and re-getting all of those kills and unlocks for the Bestiary seems like it's going to take quite a while, considering it, at least at this point in time, the balance seems like it's about 1% for every 10 or so kills. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I was just curious if that was something you guys thought about or were planning to add at some point or anything like that.
Yeah, it was something we thought about, but unfortunately we didn't have the trackers in place and storing the information locally to actually let us know that you had killed a certain amount of creatures. So the information wasn't saved anywhere before the Galileo update.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we can save it, it is being saved correctly. So yeah, unfortunately for some achievements, especially the newer ones, we couldn't add the trackers in because we weren't actually recording any of that information. In terms of the Bestiary point system and how that goes up, I think there's a variety of things. There's five things you can do, like be killed by, craft trophies of, skin, and I think something else as well. That all make it increase. And they all have slightly different numbers to kind of balance that out. So not everything's 1,000, I think, was the base.
Okay. Awesome. That's good to know, because I was just curious. Like, I've seen it. I wasn't sure how the consistency was on it, but it's good to know that those are all contributing to it. Making sure everybody knows how that works. So I'm glad to know that it's more than just killing and dying to it, or and even just crafting trophies and stuff is another way to talk about it. Speaking of which, that leads me into my next question, which is, how do you guys feel about the modding community when it comes to Icarus and stuff like that? I think you guys have spoken about it like once in the past, but I'm curious where your guys' stance is on that currently.
Well, I think modding in any game is almost essential for its longevity, right? Especially if the game stops being developed or anything like that. So I think we're happy with people modding the game. It's just we don't want to be flooded with people who have modded the game coming into our Discord and Steam and stuff and saying this isn't working anymore. Because we can't control what people are modding or how they're modifying the game and stuff like that. But we deliberately have exposed our obviously player saves, so people can do stuff there, as well as a whole lot of our JSON files like item descriptions and all that kind of jazz. So if you do know what you're doing, we have it's very easy to mess around with stats and items and things like that. I'd say it's not officially supported, but we're not gonna ban people or anything for that kind of thing.
Would you say at some point, maybe down the line, in a year or so, or depending on where Icarus is at, of course, that you guys would be open to maybe developing some kind of modding tool for people to use and do things like maybe even create their own maps and stuff?
Yeah, that would be quite cool. I just thinking right now as a program, I'm thinking about the feasibility of how many things we would have to rewrite. But I would say that's not off the cards, but it's just not planned at the moment.
Okay. All right. So the next few questions I have for you are mostly just regarding the future upcoming DLCs that you guys have planned. Okay. So I wanted to go ahead and talk about those real quick. So most of these are going to be referencing, I don't remember the name of it, the next DLC that's coming out that's like the major one covering the new biomes and stuff like that.
New Frontiers, I believe it's called.
Thank you. Yeah. So my first question is, how many new types of creatures can we currently expect to be in this new DLC?
Okay, I have to think. Give me a second.
No worries. You don't have to give me an exact number. I'm mostly just looking for a ballpark for people.
Yeah. I just don't want to overpromise. That's all. Because I know we've got a lot in the works and we've got a lot in the game right now. I would say at least 15.
Oh wow, that's awesome. That sounds like a lot. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, so we've got a lot created, and we've done the basic behaviors for them. We've got the models and all that kind of jazz, and we're sprucing up some of their attacks and balancing their stats and stuff at the moment. That's not to say there won't be more, because we do have more things coming through the pipeline. It's just, yeah, depending on developers' time and stuff, we might spend more time fleshing out the behaviors of the initial set we have and providing them with more advanced behaviors and more interesting gameplay.
Speaking of which, that's going to lead me straight into my next question. So, as far as these new creatures go, I don't know how much you can and can't tell us about them just yet. But my questions are some of them planned to be ranged or like flyer enemies? And are they going to have some, I guess I would say, unique combat to them? Because right now in Icarus, the vast majority of creatures it runs at you if it's going to be hostile and just tries to bite you or claw at you or whatever. Outside of course, there are some that are passive like deer, or you have cave worms who have their spit attacks and bosses and stuff. But as far as like behavioral stuff goes and how the player will have to handle those situations, can we expect to see maybe like flying enemies or more range type enemies or different variants or something like that?
Without spoiling anything, yes.
Okay, that works for me. I'm really excited for that.
Let's just say when you first drop into the new map, you'll immediately encounter a couple of enemies which will change the way you play.
I am so excited to hear that, because personally I'm a combat junkie when it comes to Icarus. I love the combat in video games. In Icarus in particular, especially with those boss fights, I really enjoy them because there's they feel like there's a lot more you have to be aware of. It's not this wolf is running at me, I need to shoot it or something like that. So I'm excited to hear that you guys are looking at that. Like, I love the scorpions because they hide in the ground and you don't know where they're at till they're on top of you. So that was a great addition for me personally in the game.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
So the next question I have, and you can feel free not to answer this one if you want, but this is one that I have seen a lot of my friends personally joke about that play Icarus, and that's way back when you guys were first starting your development and you guys put out your very first trailer. We saw like an alien dog looking creature. Is there any chance we're going to start seeing either that creature or at least creatures that are less, I don't know if I could think of a good word, less Terran or human-like world creatures?
Again, yes. I don't want to. Like, we're still obviously most like our initial set of creatures were all based on Earth creatures, and we started branching out from that point. I don't want to overpromise here and say everything's going to be drastically different, but I would say we have definitely shifted away from the Earth-like.
Okay, I'm personally really glad to hear that, because that's something that I've just joked about 10 million times with like my editor about, because they're always like, when are we going to get to see that alien dog creature they promised in the first trailer? So I'm excited to know that we're getting some more creatures that are, variations and have some different things about them, which I do have one more question when it comes to creatures, technically two, but I'm guessing you're not going to answer the second one, which was just, what is a lava hunter? I saw it in the patch notes and I was curious. But you don't have to answer that if you don't want to.
Scary.
Okay, good. I want scary. Scary's good. And then the other question I had for you was, let's see if I can find it in here really fast. Now, one of the other things relating to creatures was, I noticed there was in the patch notes, it did mention some spider-like creatures. And in most games that are survival games, especially ones that aren't like PvP oriented, there tends to be like an arachnophobia mode. So I'm just curious if you guys, like, if you ever played, say, for an example, Satisfactory, they turn their spiders into literally like PNG versions of cats for people who don't like spiders. So I was just curious if you guys had anything. I don't know how scary they're going to be, but it sounds like they'll be spider-like creatures. So I was curious if you guys had any plans for some kind of an arachnophobia type mode, because I know a lot of people aren't the biggest fan of spiders.
So I believe that the spider-like creature is like ready. But like as you say, we do want to put in an arachnophobia mode. So that is currently planned. It's just we don't have a slated release date for it yet.
Okay.
So when we do release it, I'll be very surprised if we don't go out with the alteration of the arachnophobia mode. We do have one of the developers did do a quick test, and what he was doing was hiding the spider mesh entirely and just putting a happy little ghost face that was floating around attacking you. That was more, I would argue that was more terrifying than the spider, a big happy ghost coming towards you that's shooting webs at you and stuff. But
well, good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm personally an arachnophobe, so I will probably end up using that option if it's available.
Awesome.
All right, so the next question is, as far as the biomes that are planned for the DLC, and I'm assuming most people that are watching this at this point probably at least have some concept of what you guys are talking about when it comes to the DLC, and we know the two new ones you've seen you talk about are the swamp and volcano biomes. I was just curious if you could tell us a little bit about what those might be like, or anything that might be cool about them that you can share without spoiling too much.
I can say the volcanic biome is very harsh. I would say it's one of, if not the hardest zone in the game, just for the way it's been created, some of the environmental hazards, some of the weather, and some of the creatures that will be roaming around. The swamp, in contrast, very different. Still a dangerous area. Some would argue more dangerous, depending on how you find the creatures. A lot of water, a lot of like new vegetation. Definitely gives you I'd say your views restricted a bit in the swamp, creating a more almost horror-like atmosphere at some stages. And I think the audio team's like absolutely nailing it on both of those as well.
Awesome. And then,
sorry, without giving you too much information.
That's good. I didn't want to spoil it for everybody because I read most of the patch notes, but I didn't know what everybody's read, so I didn't want to spoil too much. And then the last question I wanted to ask you is, will there be a higher base difficulty just associated with the new DLC? Because, like you said, that volcano zone sounds pretty harsh. It sounds like we're going to have some more dangerous creatures there, things like that. So is there just going to be a baseline, we're not expecting you to start in this biome kind of a situation going on?
Yeah, so just like with Styx and Olympus, we have defined various spawn zones, and there's some areas which are, I would say, easier than others. But as the game has progressed and the creatures have become, we've added more interesting creatures that do more damage and have very different effects. Styx is innately harder than Olympus. Prometheus is going to be innately harder than both of them.
Perfect. I'm glad to hear that. I think a lot of people will really enjoy that.
Yeah.
That's good. Right. So these were some questions just associated with the roadmap, so you don't have to go into depth with them if you don't want to. I don't want to spoil too much, but if you want to talk about what they are, what they kind of are going to consist of. So my first question is, can you talk a little bit about what the Biolab research is? And I saw that on there, and I was just curious as to what that might entail, or what that even really is, what we're talking about with that.
Yes and no. I don't want to spoil because the Biolab research is coming in the next big patch.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's what it sounds. Performing research to do something.
Fair enough. And then the next ones, again, obviously feel free not to answer them if you don't want to spoil stuff too much. What is an orbital exchange? Because to me, the first thing I think of when I think of orbital exchange is something to do with the exotic system, and maybe being able to order an exotic or something while you're on the planet. And then what is the Great Hunt? Because when I think of that, I'm thinking of maybe I've got to go down multiple bosses at the same time or something like that.
Orbital exchange, I can go a little bit into that. So we've already got things in game to, extract exotics.
Mm-hmm.
The exchange is more along that system, but allowing you to possibly call down workshop items and send them back up without leaving.
Okay, that sounds honestly really nice because I know in open world mode in particular, that'll probably get used a ton because I have a ton of workshop items just sitting in my open world.
Yeah, it's all to do with like that. That's it in a very briefly, but it's more communication with the ground and the hab, basically.
Okay. I forgot to ask this earlier, but as far as the new DLC goes, is there a rough timeline on when we can expect to see that sometime in the near future? Are we thinking like 6 months, a year out, or where's your guys's, I don't know, ballpark of what you're aiming for?
Right, I can't give you an exact time, sorry. But I can say we're well on our way through it. I would say we are about 85-90% of the way to completion, and about releasing it. It'll be when it's ready. Basically, we'll make sure that it's in. We've had full testing and everything like that, and it will come out when basically we're good and happy for it to be released.
Okay.
It does. I know that like a lot of people might not want to hear that because they want a set date and anything or something like that. It's just we want to take our time to make sure we put out good content now, rather than rushing things through. Which we have rushed things through in the past with our weekly updates and stuff like that, and we just want to make sure that we're taking the time to get things right and get things in a very good state. So when we push it out, people can enjoy the experience like without crazy bugs and all the systems working correctly.
No, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I've always been one of those people that say it's done when it's done type of a situation, because if it's, like you said, if you rush something out and it's not quality, people are not going to enjoy it and not going to be happy with it. And that's not what anybody wants. I'd much rather wait an extra few months if it means that, it's going to have bugs tested and I'm not going to be running into issues around every single corner. So yeah. I think that's a great way to treat it. So this one's a personal question for you. What are you personally most excited for when it comes to the new DLC? Like if there's one thing in there that you can talk about and you're like, I'm super excited for this, what would that be?
Just the new creatures, honestly. And oh no, I haven't said anything about that. Okay, so there's some new items that I can say there's a new toolset. There's at least one new toolset coming out. And there's going to be certain items that you collect in the different biomes that will directly help you against the new creatures. There's going to be a bit more of you might need to focus more on weaknesses and strong points, and like understanding how a creature acts in both its behavior and the environment that it's in to be able to take it down. There might be a bit more preparation involved as you're learning your way through the new map.
Awesome.
I know I said that in a very roundabout way, but I hope. Yeah.
No, I think we got the gist of it. I understand that we don't want you to over spoil things, and you don't want to give away too much information before things are actually available to the player and stuff. So, but I think that's a great way to put it. Oh, so this is another question, but this is a personal thing I've been wanting to see for a long time, and you guys have definitely improved on the system. But that is, do you guys have any plans to add like a update to the marking system on the map, where maybe you could put like even craft maybe a beacon like you do in say Satisfactory that you put down and it says, hey, this is a beacon and I've marked it as my home, and maybe you could, or even just the ability to mark things on your map and then have them be different colors or something like that, so that way we can have multiple marks rather than just the one mark we're heading towards or that we wanted to keep marked currently.
Yeah, well, I actually had a chat with someone about this yesterday. Yeah, we do want to improve that system quite a bit, because at the moment you've got the one mark that you move around and you've got the beacons, and that's about it. And that doesn't feel good enough, but we want to do it in a way that just doesn't provide unlimited custom marks placed by people, or we might. It all depends. But the latest suggestion was to basically have something that you build that allows you to freely mark your map with various stamps and stuff like that. Yeah, we're still in the early phases of like working through that problem at the moment, like because we could just allow custom mark placement everywhere, but I think we want to put it behind a small mechanic or something like that instead.
Okay.
Just to make it feel like you've moved up the tech tree to be able to you get a bit more satisfaction out of it. Yeah, because Icarus is still like kind of based on like a realism and a hard kind of harsh environment. Yeah, so we're just trying to find the balance there without like and like not insulting, but going back on our original kind of vision.
No, that's totally fair, and I'm just glad to hear that you guys are at least looking into it and trying to brainstorm good ideas. I think personally, some kind of basic, relatively cheap item, maybe like a tech 2 or 3 item that you could craft and place where you want that marker, or allow you to place maybe like an extra 2 markers or something like that, would be a great idea. So I think that's a great concept for it. Now, as far as questions from my community go, I do have a few of those. I didn't get a whole ton of them before we did the interview today, so I am going to ask just a couple of these really quick. So I have a question from Jeremy Henry, who asked, will there be some more story-driven content added to Olympus and Styx missions in the future, especially considering that the new DLC is going to be coming out at some time? And when that comes out, what's going to happen to Olympus and Styx? Will there be content carried over? It's kind of a 2-part question.
Yes. So we don't plan on abandoning Styx and Olympus at all. And we do plan on making new missions there. What we've done with the DLC, I can say, is that we are providing like a mission chain, which presents a story and lets you explore some of the lore of Icarus. And we do have plans to do more stuff like that in both Olympus, Styx, and New Frontiers. But it takes a bit of time to get that kind of stuff right. So yeah, in no way are we abandoning missions or more story-driven content. It just it takes a bit of time because we need to do both the writing, the quest design, as well as the recording and stuff like that.
Oh, that's I think a solid answer. I personally really loved the I can't remember what you guys called it. It was the like I don't want to think of the right word, where it's like the real people acting thing. The
live action stuff.
Yes, I love the live action stuff because I didn't really even understand the full plot line of Icarus until I watched that video. And I'm like, oh, this starts to make sense now. Now I understand why I'm dropping down and going back up and all those things back when that originally came out. I think that was those things have added a lot of context, and I think that's personally, I don't think that's a bad way to do it, because if you look at how like Overwatch did it back in the day when they were first starting their game, all of their lore was almost entirely based around their like little trailer videos and stuff, which kind of gave you a backstory as to what you were doing, why you were doing it, who the characters were, all that kind of a thing. And I think doing any amount of story, I think players would definitely love to see just some base storylines so they know why they care about what they're doing.
Yeah, we're quite passionate about getting the story in. It's just we want to do it in a way, the story and the lore, and it's just we want to do it in a way that doesn't shove it in people's faces. And we want to do it like we've subtly started doing it with more with item descriptions and a bunch of lore in the bestiary and stuff like that. But I was actually having a chat with the audio director and the people and people involved in the narrative at Icarus, and we were brainstorming some ideas to try and get more lore in without it feeling like a forced thing. Because we've got a lot of lore like written up and sitting there. Like we've got like in-depth things on all the companies and what's going on in the UDA and the outcomes of some of the things that were displayed in the earlier trailers. But we really do want to get that in game. And hopefully in the next couple of updates, you'll see us adding a bit more here and there, a bit subtly, and some not so much. But yeah, hopefully we can get that in a way that people who are looking for that stuff can find it.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't know if you've ever played The Forest or Sons of the Forest, but the way
Mm.
they do their plot line, as far as in the original game at least, they did a lot of like notes and stuff you would find. Now, I'm personally not the biggest fan of that, at least if it's your only way to communicate your story.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that it's great to have those little tidbits like you guys have with the Bestiary and through the item tooltips and all these other things, but having also just like, even if it's just, when you're in the mission, like you have that guy, I don't know who the voice actor is, but whoever does the voiceover when you drop in to doing missions and stuff, and he's like, hey, the UDAs want you to do this or whatever's going on, and having him maybe just like explaining it while you're doing it, and or just giving you the option to tick that off might be a great idea. But I'm not trying to influence you one way or another. I was thinking about it. So I would just love to see some plot line added that was, again, like you said, not forced, but something that is, hey, this is, if even if you're just listening passively while you play the game, once in a while you'll have a good concept of what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah, definitely.
Alrighty, so my next question is, I can't pronounce his name, so I'm just gonna do my best. It's Miragan. And he asked, are you guys planning to add any more languages to the game? More specifically for him, he was asking about Arabic.
Arabic. I'm not sure. I would have to check in with the localization manager. But I can ask Awas today.
Awesome.
Sorry, I can't answer that.
No, that's okay. I was just curious if you guys had any more plans to add anything like that, so that works out fine. I know that Icarus over time in the last year or so seems to have lost a little bit of its steam with the player base, as far as like players going off and playing other survival games and things like that. And I'm just curious, as far outside of the DLC, which I'm sure is going to be a huge contribution and boost to people wanting to come back and play again. Do you guys have anything in mind as far as getting players to want to return, and mechanics that would encourage players to be like, hey, this is a new thing we've added and it's going to give you a lot more to do that you might enjoy? Because I know like open world, for an example, was huge. Tons of players and friends that I personally have that played Icarus in the past, once that happened, just came flooding back and they were like, hey, this is so much fun. So I was just curious, outside of the DLC, sorry, I smacked my mic, but outside of the DLC, if you had anything else in mind that you guys might be doing in the future that's going to bring a lot of those players back.
So yeah, so this is an interesting this is an interesting question. So if you look at Icarus now compared to when we released it, it's quite a different game. Like there's a lot more content in, and we had a lot of people play right at the beginning, and they dropped off really early. And we've done 70 weeks of patches with like a brand new map, new creatures, and a whole lot of new mechanics. And we're working on, obviously, these larger chunks of patches every 2 to 3 months or 4 months or however long it takes. Our current strategy is to just keep doing this work, keep going strong, keep making improvements, keep updating mechanics and all that kind of jazz. We're not expecting like everyone to come flooding back to the game. It's like when we release one of these big things. Obviously, there's an uptick and people really enjoy it. The main thing that brings people back to games these days is like big marketing pushes, especially on Steam and stuff like that. So our basic strategy is to keep improving, keep making it better, keep adding mechanics, and then when marketing push is ready or the market opportunity is there, then we'll see what we can do there, and hopefully get more publicity, and then people will see that and come back and then realize the amount that has changed, and then tell their friends and all that kind of thing. So I would say, like, in an ideal world, every 3 months we put out a big patch, everyone comes back and checks it out, but that's just, I got to be realistic. But yeah, just the constant improvements. I think there's a lot that will bring people back, especially in the coming larger patches. But it's more about the visibility of them actually finding it.
No, I think that's a great way to put it. I mean, you even said yourself, like when, or I guess another great example, when you guys had that open world patch came out and the whole system of open world came out, I had friends who had played right when Icarus came out and really just got frustrated because it felt at the time that things were a little rushed or just weren't really all complete just at that point in time, but they ended up returning to the game and they had a blast for like 2 months when open world came out, just playing just purely open world, and they absolutely loved it. So I definitely am excited to see what you guys do in the future. I'm really excited for some of this stuff on the roadmap, even though I know you probably can't talk about all of it just yet, like the Great Hunt, or even like personally, probably my favorite one on here would just be batteries. I would absolutely die for just a car battery I can place down in the world and just have some charge when my generators accidentally turn off. That would be amazing.
Okay. You're like, okay, I think I really need to do something with batteries now. You're like, I want to say the 5th person that's hit me up this week about them.
Yeah. High up on my want list is batteries. I'd say that's like top 3, other than the DLC with all the new creatures, is probably like batteries is either number 2 or number 3.
All right. Maybe I will have a look, and because I do have a prototype for a battery that I threw together, I want to say the Christmas after release. I was working over that period just to, make sure the weekly patches and stuff are going out. And back when I was a lonely little programmer, so I've got a prototype battery that's actually in game. So I might dust that off and see if I can maybe arrange a weekly patch or something with that in. Just because there seems to be a lot of demand for it. So
yeah, I think a lot of people would love to have a battery in the game of just any size. It could be the tiniest little battery. Just a battery of some kind would be amazing. It would make solar panels so much more viable too, because you're not having 0 power at night every single night. So I would love to see that. I think that's probably it. I'm sure my community will probably see this video and comment on it and be like, why didn't you ask this question? Stuff like that. But that's fine. I'll give it to you at some point.
No worries.
But no, yeah, I really enjoyed this. I'm really grateful. Did you have anything else you wanted to contribute or just add as far as to what you want players to know about the game or about the development team or anything like that?
We do. Yeah, something that a lot of people don't realize we do. We are quite active on the Discord, and we do try to get to Steam posts. It's just, obviously we release on a Friday, and it's a lot of work sometimes. But we try to be active on both of those. And if you've ever got any questions or anything, feel free to jump in the Discord, and usually we'll jump in and help. The big thing is that all the bug reports and feature upvotes that you guys put through when playing Icarus, we do actually go through all of them. We have a lot of we have like 2 or 3 people that go over every single one and turn things into tickets and bring things up with design. So I know a lot of people think that we may not be involved or may not check that stuff, but we do. We painstakingly check every single one. So basically know that we are there, we are listening, and we do talk back if you want to talk to us on the Discord.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate it. I'm sure my community will love watching this video and getting to know more about what your guys' plans are for the game and just all the things we talked about. So thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks very much for having me. And this was really enjoyable. So I hope we get to do it again sometime.
Thank you guys so much for watching, and I want to give a big shout out to our Platinum and Above channel members, which currently include Caustic FPV, Jonathan S., Gerald89, AZ Blackbird, and Jim Phillips. I'm Game Advisor, and I'll see you in the next one.